Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Let's do this. So, not going to be a small week because overshadowing everything this week is going to be Marvel Zombies. Marvel Zombie side. I don't know why they went with Marvel Zombies. I mean, I guess they really wanted to go with the tie-in from the actual comic book side of things, but at the same time, it's Marvel Zombie side, folks. So, what else is going up against it, though? And what else do you need to know? Because, again, I've heard you guys in the comment section. Some of you are like, hey, I'm all in on this. And others are like, hey, you know what? I'm easily passing on this because, aforementioned reasons. Marvel or zombies. Zombie side. So, again, completely reasonable. So, you need to know what else is out there then. Because that's probably more important for the rest of you. Side note here. If you watched my Puzzle Strike video, again, just to clarify a few things, I said in my Puzzle Strike video from this past week, I was so enamored with Puzzle Strike 2, and it was different enough than the other Puzzle Strikes that I went out and I bought the other Puzzle Strikes. Now, you may take that with a grain of salt. People might be like, oh yeah, he's just kidding. Nope. There it is, folks. I can't really lift it because they're chips and they're in there in a, insert, so I don't want to, have them all fall out. But I put my money where my mouth is. So there it is. It just arrived the other day. It's really heavy because it has shadows in it as well. Side note there. Okay, at the beginning. The other thing, though, that if there is anything that's going to give it a run for its money, there is Total War Rome going up on Gamefound as well on the same day. So there's going to be money flowing around in every single place now. So let's take a little bit more in-depth look. As always, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. Let's do this. I'm skipping ahead here to the Marvel Zombies trailer. I'm not going to run through the full 3-minute trailer here. I did that on a whole separate other video. You can check that out if you want. But what's interesting here is you're playing as the zombies. We've got a few of the atypical ones. We've got Deadpool. And then we go over to the X-Men side of things. As they say, there's a second core here. And we'll skim over to that side of things as well. And you can see a little bit of what you're getting right here with the X-Men side of things. And frankly speaking, the X-Men side of things is more intriguing to me. Marvel United X-Men was more intriguing. And I've just always been more of a X-Men more than Avengers. And so I'm more interested on this one and seeing what stops we're going to, find. Because Marvel United, whether it was the first one or the second one, especially with Spin Master, they have quite the depth of catalog of heroes and villains that they can pull from, it seems like. What's really potentially going to be one of my key points or make it or break it's for me, not only personally, but when I look at it from a should you back standpoint, because I'm going to do that video as well now. And I guess I'll plug that right now for a second, as this is the most time that most of you are going to be watching. Would it be more helpful if I put something out right away? So like 24, 36 hours after the campaign launches, just boom, out there, because there's always a rush of those should you back videos right away. Or, again, what are you going to click on? Are you going to be waiting, or would you look at a video like mine if I waited until a week left in the campaign when they've, thrown out 3 or 4 of the expansions that are there, and you have more details on the gameplay, and you have more details on what the stretch goals look like? Because that's the other way I tend to do it, but lately it doesn't seem to be where also people are looking at from a view standpoint. So I'm a little bit torn on that from either side of things. Now, apparently, per one of the videos with Quackalope, they've said that, it's going to be cross-compatible. So if you've got this, you're going to be playable on the other side of things. If they're on the other side of things with the Avengers playing as that, you're going to be cross-compatible on this one. Which relieves me of a little bit of concern, because I was afraid that we're going to, pledge lock that behind a whole other, add-on, if you will. Sort of like they did with Arcadia Quest's crossover with Masmora. And, I mean, the other elephant in the room, let's not kid ourselves here, this is the freaking elephant in the room right now. And I audibly groaned when they said that on this trailer there were going to be gameplay, basically unlocks associated with it. And apparently during, again, the Quackalope gameplay conversation video, there were conversation pieces that said Silver Surfer is going to only be tied in with Galactus. And apparently, again, what and everything that's going to be in this is going to be another make it or break it for me. Because if there's a lot of gameplay content, I'm going to be really torn on it. But if it's just like a little bit of stuff, just like with Cthulhu Death May Die, I'm going to pass on it. I don't need this thing, cluttering up. My wife is going to look at me sideways if that ever enters my house, and I have nowhere to put that. That's not a showpiece for me. It's not. And as much as Quackalope's video, with the KDM painter Shoshi, I think her name is, if I'm getting that right, I'm not gonna paint that. I mean, no, it doesn't make it any less gaudy from my side of things. So I look at it as, if that's gonna cost $100 to $150, which I imagine is going to be the price point, because of production changes, and people were saying, well, they're going to mass market now this one compared to the Cthulhu one, and so the price is going to be lower. No, it's not. It's going to be CMON, and it's going to be increased production costs from 2 or 3 years ago, compared to that, just with the supply chain stuff. And so, I think the potential all in for everything here, when you've got all of this stuff going on right here at the end with all of this, I think each core is going to run you $90 to $100, because each of them is probably going to get you some sort of stretch goals. Or, God forbid, that they do, the only way you get stretch goals is if you get both cores. I sure as heck hope they don't do that. But just each of those cores costing you $90, even if you say the Galactus is on the conservative side of another $90, that's $270. Do you think CMON is going to have any less than, well, essentially none of their campaigns, again, looking back over the past couple years, have had anything less than about 7 add-ons. Now, again, that's including gameplay and non-gameplay add-ons, but those gameplay add-ons will range anywhere from like $20 to $50. And so even if you have 4 of those expansion ones that are going to range you $40, that's another 160, plus your 270 right there is $430 before you get the non-gameplay things. And I'm being conservative. So you're easily talking an all-in of 450 to 500 plus. So anyone that's hoping for an all-in of like 3 or low 3s, I think you're going to be sadly off base, unfortunately. Again, I would be happy to be wrong on this side of things. Happy. But I don't think that's going to be the case. I don't. Like, I'm super pumped for this, but I go back and forth between, super joy with all of this is going to be going on, and super, oh man, am I actually going to go play this? I got a whole bunch of other CMON games that, are a bunch of plastic and taking up, 2 Calyx cubes and aren't getting played in the first place. I'm looking at you, Bloodborne. No, literally, I'm looking at you, Bloodborne, right now. And it's a tough sell. Now, again, I love the Marvel IP. I love zombies in general. I think it would be a nice step up for the kids, as long as it's not a little too grotesque, because they're more familiar with the superhero stuff. But at the same time, can I get it played? The number one reason I went, and I should have went all in on the Marvel United X-Men, was that was my most played game of 2021. And so just from that side of things, the monetary becomes a little bit less when I can get it played and played a ton. But if I just can't get this played a ton, and as cool as this looks, doesn't matter how cool it looks on the shelf sitting in shrink collecting dust. I'm not a collector. I don't want to be a collector. I could be a collector. Buy 3 of these and sell it 2 years after it, comes out, and you'll make Godzooks money. But that's not how I operate either. So I'm really torn on this. I'm really torn. I'm going to be backing day one. I'll tell you right now. I'm going to back day one, and I'm going to let it ride. Roll the dice and let it ride and see where it goes. I will say, though, right now, before the campaign even launches, when you pull back and look at this thing again, if nothing else, the best value by far and away with any of these campaigns that have exclusives is just getting the core pledge. I would argue that you only get the core pledge, period, no matter who you are, no matter what you are, in the campaign itself, if not that or the $1, because I have never had a problem upgrading with the pledge managers. I have been burned a couple times on over pledging during the campaigns and not being able to get that money back in the campaign manager. So that is my biggest concern. The other biggest concern is when you've got all of these heroes and you've got all of these villains, are they unique enough? Because that was also the problem with the first Marvel United, was it was sort of blah. I don't need blah. If you're going to use an IP like this, You need to make these characters unique. You need to make them different. You know, we see that on all the small games, right? We see that on, you know, I talked about Puzzle Strike. I talked about Skytier Horde. I talked about Marvel United. Are there only going to be like 6 of these little things right here? How different are these powers going to be for Storm right here on her actual power sheet? You know, what is going to be the difference? How are the bystanders that fit over here on the left side, how different are they going to be? Because Marvel United had it in spades with the villain side of things, but the heroes, especially in the first one, bleh. Some of them, I mean, might as well just be swapping. You could swap out the hero cards and you'd never know the difference with the rest of their deck. And that's my fear in something like this. But if you're going to have all of these characters, make them freaking sweet. That's how you show them off. That's why Roxley is being applauded, because they're doing a good job with it. You know? With the Dice Throne Marvel side of things. So, impress me. And hopefully we see some of this. Like, I want to be able to tell the difference between, you know, if you give me 2 Spider-Mans, I want to be able to tell the difference between each one of them and the nuances between them. If you give me Wolverine and you give me Sabretooth, they better both be darn different. Right? Right. So, I mean, I'm in already, but show me more. So going head to head against that next week for minds, for hearts, but also for the cash, is Total War Rome, the board game. Now, this is going up on Gamefound, so we're going to see what happens with this. 6 days from when I'm filming this, so that's going to put it on the 20th. I originally had it as the 18th, so just, again, mark your calendars. The other interesting thing to know is this obviously is a port over from the video game side of things. Again, what are you going to be doing? Why is this going to be different? PSC Games giving us the 4 leaders of the 4 nations that they're using: Rome, Carthage, Greece, and Gaul, Germania. Doing everything apparently that you're going to be doing right here in the video game. Follow now, get a first player banner free. Okay, great. The interesting thing though on this is the other thing that I can't understate is there's already almost 16,000 people following this. So the general rule of thumb, if you're not aware, I think from the creator side of things, I've heard like secondhand, is about 10% a backing. So you're looking at 1,500, 2,000 that you expect, and then everything else is just sort of, okay, where are things going to fall? I don't know if there's a whole lot. Last time I looked at this, there wasn't a whole lot on the page. Now, interestingly enough, this looks like the base game. This is named the Alexander expansion right here. And these look like other expansions as well. I just can't read them. I can't make them out even when I blow it up. So you're looking at potentially 4 expansions just from the get-go, which again is going to be a hefty price. 1 to 4 players, race to 25 victory points, military, armies, enemies, psychological warfare. I believe PSC had a couple, let's see, actually no, they're updates. I believe they've had a couple updates that talk about some of the mechanics. So right there, okay, like I said, January 20th. Now, they've had, that's 11th update if you were looking very closely right there. So they've had already 10 updates talking about it. And unfortunately, I would prefer to have it on one page, but they've got it scattered throughout here. So if you're interested in what the mechanics are, if you're interested in what it's going to look like, you can see, okay, faction boards, the game made for the people, by the people, updated card art. Okay, I mean, that doesn't look bad. Map discussions, Greece, gameplay details. Okay, maybe we'll go to that one. And Alexander, here you go, the Alexander versus the Barbarians. They updated, see, I was right. They were coming out earlier than that. Miniatures, it's miniature based, so if that gives you any clue, again, Carthage, Barbarians. Let's see what else we got here, just as a quick rundown. Rome. Okay, so let's talk gameplay of Total War Rome. It runs through the phases right here, so you can get a pretty good sense of what you're going to be doing. First up, you're going to be bidding for initiative. Now, you're going to be drawing the number of initiative cards for the number of players, and there are 8 total initiative cards, so you might only draw 4 of the 8 cards, for example. And if you're only drawing 4 of the 8 cards, well, obviously there's going to be numbers that you don't have. So how do you mitigate that? And a lot of these phases, they talk about mitigation and dealing with adversity. And so the first thing they say is not only are you going to be playing your card, you're also going to be bidding gold secretly as well to reveal the initiative order. And going first in the initiative order, they also mention, is not necessarily the advantage that you might think it is, especially in other games, as I found out the other night when we played a game with my wife. And sometimes it's better to go second in these situations, and they talk about that. Then you are going to be drawing 4 action cards. And so this is the other aspect of things. Again, there's some randomness, not only with this, but also with the battles that we'll talk about in a second. The action cards that you're going to be drawing, each action card has 3 possible different uses. So multi-use cards. And they are divided into agent actions, event actions, and super taxation. And we'll talk about that in a second too. So it talks about, okay, what can you do? Treaty, spy, riot, trade, assassinate, bribe. Okay, great. Runs through all of those. Those are your various things. And then it goes through the taxation phase. And this is where the super tax is sort of a catch-up mechanic, because gold is power, essentially, because you can do more with more gold, but it's going to cost you, metaphorically speaking and literally speaking. And then it goes into the actual, the Total War portion of Total War Rome, where you're campaigning over a spring-summer sort of aspect whenever miniatures meet on the battlefield of war or a battle takes place. But you need to be aware that one miniature represents a whole army, and the army contents are secret unless you spy. So you have to deal with whatever is thrown at you if you don't know what the other person's army looks like in the first place. But then you're going to be rolling dice, and they say right down here in this wall of text, there are, I'll highlight it for you, 5 uniquely colored dice, black to red, in terms of lethality, if you will. And there's also going to be terrain values that are going to change that as well. What card, when you play it, how you are playing these cards, army against army, your troopers against them. It's not just a splash all risk and, see what happens. So it's a little bit more nuanced than that, which is good, especially if you're going to be throwing dice in there. Spending phase, and then this is where you're going to be spending said gold. Get more units, develop your faction via your tech tree, and then getting more regional improvements like markets, roads, or barracks for easier army deployment. And so much more, they say. The 3 ways you're going to win, that you're going to be trying to get your 25 victory points: military strategy, economic strategy, get more bling, or development. Progressive revolutionist. There you go. So again, that's going to be the question, is how many of these people convert? There's going to be a big following, and I would assume that, if you're getting a video game IP license, part of the conversation, part of the agreement nowadays would be like, hey, it'd be super awesome if you guys on the official channel from like the Total War Rome video game put out a, hey, we're doing a board game now, so that you get a lot of your base ported over. And it's on Gamefound, so we'll see what happens. I have no idea what's going to happen in terms of funding for this. So it's going to be really interesting to watch. And we don't really have any pledge levels either. So at least that I saw in the few updates I glanced at. And again, seeing that there's going to be 4 expansions potentially here, if all of these mini ones are expansions, that could be pricey as well. Next up, we're going to be talking about a Pandasaurus. Pandasaurus is going back over to crowdfunding as well. And this is launching, as it says here, on the 18th. This is Pandasaurus's website here, which is interesting because it doesn't have a lot of the details that, at least on this page, that the Board Game Geek page talks about. And I'm a nostalgic fan of Tony Hawk and the Tony Hawk board games before they got like the whole skateboard like Wii or whatever that was, with the skateboard motion controller or something. I don't know. I played it on N64. So Ace of Spades was the soundtrack, the song that I clearly remember from that side of things. And they're going to be doing aspects, and this looks to be heavily playing off of that, because you're not only going to be upgrading your character, trying to score combo points, but also, as they say here, trying to actually collect the letters SKATER on the actual board game itself. Now, the only thing that worries me is they have the play length of like 60 to 90 minutes. So I just worry about from that side of things, because it's a little bit of playing your cards, upgrading, skating around, moving, grabbing gear that's out there, making combos. So I just don't know how that's actually going to be. There are some random quotes down here from some previews, I think. Some, I'm assuming, paid, some non-paid. So I just don't know which is which, and don't really tell me like actual mechanics and that sort of thing. So it's probably going to be a wait and see when we get more video content out, or at least a rule book when it launches on the 18th. But I'm intrigued enough that it's going to now actually get on my radar when I wasn't planning on it at all whatsoever. And this is the sort of game that always dings your budget because it comes out of nowhere, and it was literally just announced like a week ago. And I've been sort of really liking what Pandasaurus has been putting out lately on the retail side of things. And I've been trying to get on the review side of things with them as well because of that overlap of interest. So I'm going to be watching this one. I'm going to be definitely checking this one out on the day of launch as well. And again, I wasn't planning on it until I actually looked at this page to make this video. So again, side note, like someone in the comments was like, oh, you misspoke. Super Smash Brothers, when I was talking about Iconoclash and the upcoming Kickstarters, was like, hey, Super Smash Brothers was never on Super Nintendo. I misspoke and said Super Nintendo instead of N64. And he's like, well, you're clearly fake. Begin the fakeness and the hype. I'm like, man, this is like a super small game from a super small publisher. Do you think they're, like a big company with a big budget that's saying, hey, promote this game? You probably never even heard of that game before I even mentioned it. I've never seen it on anyone else's lists so far that are talking about upcoming games for 2022. And seriously, man, you got nothing better to do? Oh, misspoke. He must be fake. Anyway, next game. This is going to be a slight departure. If you are familiar at all with Aqua Garden, I'm not going to butcher the name of the publisher or the designer here, but if you're familiar with this as one of the surprise hits of 2021 from a Kickstarter standpoint, well, I've got some news for you. We finally have the next game from this designer called Ostia. This is going to be launching as well on the 22nd, the day that this video for next week will be going live. So if you're tuning in next week, this is going to be launching at the same time-ish. Now, again, this is a very interesting mechanism. Aqua Garden was probably one of the most beautifully produced games in the last year or two on crowdfunding. Period. Across the board, those animal meeples are amazing. I'm half hoping that Aqua Garden is available, sort of like the back catalog side of things, because you can get most of the stuff on the designer's website, but it's like almost twice the cost of the original run. And so I'm hoping maybe we can get it more at the Kickstarter prices, because I would seriously think about picking up an all-in from Aqua Garden from that standpoint. But we're talking about Ostia right here. What do you need to know about Ostia? Now, it's using a Mancala mechanism that is going to be slightly different than a lot of the other games that you've played, and it's truly more Mancala. Like if you've ever played Mancala, right? You grab the stones that are in the thing, you deposit them all there, and you're trying to get, all the ones off your side or on the other side or in the end. You know what I'm talking about. And so Mancala here, though, is you're building structures around in these 6 different areas, and you're trying to upgrade your player board. But what you're doing on your actual turn is you are taking one of these 6 spaces, and you are producing resources based on the number of ships that are in that area in the first place. So if there's 2 ships in this area that I'm sort of circling about right here, you get 2 of whatever that produces. Then you grab those 2 ships and you go around, I don't know which way, we'll go counterclockwise for the sake of this example. And so then you're going to deposit 1 here in this area, and then 1 here in this area right here, and then you get to do an action based on this area where the last one is dropped off at. And so you're going to be using these to collect resources, to buy upgrades, to buy buildings, to buy more ships, all of that sort of fun stuff. And it's a little bit different. And again, it looks like a beautifully simplistic, minimalistic game, which is exactly what I love. And if you want more information, if that's not enough information for you right now, you can go over, wrong picture, Miss Merc right here. I'm familiar with her work from Twitter. She's over in Japan, and she does these animated videos. She did one for Aqua Garden that gave a lot of very, very helpful information for the first one. And this is going to be very helpful as well if you want more information on how to play it actually with the details. So if you're interested, it's already up on BoardGameGeek, and check it out, and it'll help you even before the campaign launches. So there you go. Next up, launching also on the 18th, we have a game called Urto. This is a French game, so we're going to go over to the French website actually in the first place and check it out. Now, it has a little bit of the French rules. It has a whole web page dedicated to it, and it's a dungeon crawl essentially for 2 to 5 players that you are going through a hex-based dungeon. You're trying to upgrade your 5 asymmetric heroes with unique powers, trying to escape the cave, prove yourself against beasts, grab all the artifacts and magical items you can, and then, escape in the first place. And then Urto is the being that decides who did the best when you escape. So I have no clue what that means, but, some sort of victory point thing. And they've got a bunch of information actually on the game here, which is really nice. They've got a production side. You can see it's a hex-based system where you're going to be moving and exploring. And they show you a little bit of everything that's going to be in the game as well here when I go over to the actual next page, the material. And so you can see, okay, meeples, dice, cards, and a little bit of the player boards themselves and the tokens. So I'm assuming there's a little bit of English already on this page, so I'm assuming there's going to be a French-English option. But if that looks like it's a little bit of an interest to you, especially as an introductory or a next step for someone like myself with kids, check it out. Now we're going back to the 22nd with a game called White Hat. This is a very interesting game. It's a re-implementation of a game called Black Hat, which is very similar and looks to be a sort of a 2 to 6 player. Now, they say also with the White Hat, there's going to be a solo variant that can be done as well with this, which is going to set it apart a little bit. And it's a trick-taking game, and you're going to be moving your hats across this board, this network of FBI, of databases, of security, clearances, trying to get to the end, to get to the critical, trying to get to the critical data here that essentially wins you the game. And so you're going to be playing tricks, and if you win the trick, you get to move your hat. But the winning of the trick actually also depends on the space that you're on, because the space that you're on has points, and it's actually the one with the lowest points that is going to win, whatever that means. And so again, it's going to be interesting to see how they do this and what sort of mechanics you can do and incorporate from a trick-taking standpoint, because I think you could have something kind of unique here. Now, obviously, these cards in this picture are a little bit different, and so what aspect of that, besides just a number, are there going to be abilities? What is going to entail from that aspect of things? But we'll see right along with Ostia on the 22nd. And we have one more here that I'm going to talk about, and that is Temerity, a volatile mind game. Very little information. Essentially, all you're doing is playing cards. You're either playing face-up cards and flipping over a face-down card before the deck runs out, trying to do the highest attack against your opponent in this 2-player 1 versus 1, some sort of battling game. But there's no other information on Board Game Geek, so take that for what you will. And I believe this one is actually launching on the 16th. There was one other that I picked up from like a random Facebook ad, I believe. It was called Summon Guardians. There's no information on Board Game Geek. You can imagine that me typing Summon Guardians into Google doesn't get me a whole lot of results. So I have no other information on that, except for the fact that it was supposedly supposed to launch on the 18th as well. Well, how was that for take 2? It stopped filming on take 1 halfway through. So take 2s are always better, but they're twice as time consuming. Okay, what do we got on board now? Let's do the over-unders. The over-unders... first up, I mean, we have to be talking about the 2 biggest projects that are out there. I mean, Marvel Zombies and Total War Rome. But you know what? We're going to throw Ostia in there too, because I think that deserves a special mention. Let's just take one from all of those big 4 with Skater Summer as well from Pandasaurus. Let's put it, obviously, I think, the highest funding would be not very difficult to do. But let's talk about which ones would be, let's see, Marvel Zombies. Let's take, one from each. So Marvel Zombies. Does Marvel Zombies, and I'd like to say like the first 24 hours, but let's just, let's make it consistent. So because this video gets posted every Saturday at 7 a.m. So let's make it, does Marvel Zombies have more, over or under, we'll say 3 million by the time this video airs next week? I have no idea. Total War Rome. I always want to say Total Rome War. Every single time I have to correct myself in my head before it comes out of my mouth. Let's say, does that have, let's put it at, let's just make it an even mil. Let's just say 1 million. Does it break 1 million over or under by the time this video airs? Skater Summer. Does it break, let's say, 125,000 over or under? And let's make number 4 Ostia. Does Ostia break 50,000 by the time this video airs? So that's 4 of your 5 right there. And I will eventually, at the time of Marvel Zombicide ending, do one of those, how many expansions does it have? But that's not really fair to do, because this is only going to be like a 4-day window in terms of when it's going to be, between the, 4 or 5, whatever, how many ever days that is. Between when it launches and when. So I only expect like 1 expansion plus Galactus in that time. So let's see, what can we do for the 5th one? You know what? Let's go back to Marvel Zombies for the 5th one. Galactus. How much is Galactus going to cost? We'll put the over-under on Galactus. Let's put it on Galactus, because that was the other topic that came up quite frequently in the conversation around the trailer video that I did earlier. Let's make the over-under. Is it going to be over or under? Just the Galactus. We'll put it at $130. $130. Is Galactus more or less? Let me know what you think. TV time. TV time, TV time, TV time. Oh, I should do last week's results. I'll edit those in right here. Okay, so we'll go back to last week's prop bets and see how I did. Now I've got my little cheat sheet in front of me here. So we'll go over this just so I can remember which ones we actually did. So first up, we said over or under 4.5 games funding over 100,000, and I said over. Now I said games. Didn't say campaigns, and so that's where I'm going to probably bite myself in the, whatever. But we'll say this one first because that one's we'll get to both these at the same time. Over or under 9.5 new games completely funded. So we have Viscounts number 1, Puzzle Strike number 2. This is technically a game. I don't know if we're going to count it. Hike number 3. Let's see what else we got here. Soria, I completely forgot about that. I'm so sorry. Million Games. I will cover you next week. That's number 4. Even though I didn't cover it, I'm still counting it. Yucatan 5. Final Girl 6. Collab 7. Sky Tier 8. Sink or Swim just funded 9. Guardians 10. So 10. Because Hostile Hoarders isn't funded yet, and that's, I think, where things sort of end up here. I'm not counting TCGs. If you've paid attention from 2021, we don't count TCGs. This one just launched, and apparently TCGs are just a money mine now. It's got $500,000. It's got almost more than anything raised, but we don't count that in any of the prop bets now, because we made that rule. The committee made that rule in 2021. Yes, I am referring to myself in third person as the committee. So, over under 4.5 games of 500,000. So going back through these ones again, let's see. Nope, that's under. We're not counting this because I said games. If I would have said campaigns, I would have, been okay there. So we got Sky Tier Hoarders number 1. Oh, Collab's not there. 2 as Final Girl. 3 as Yucatan. And Puzzle Strike's not there. Keeper is 4. So 4. Collab or would have been higher if I would have counted Dice Campaign. So that one's under. I thought I was going to be perfect this week. Look at how good I am at making bets. Final Girl Series 2 or Viscounts. Well, we all know it's Final Girl Series 2 at this point. There's no contest from that standpoint. And then we have over 400,000 for Final Girl and over under 18.5 new games. Well, clearly not 18.5 games because a couple got delayed as well. So that one was under, so I was wrong on that one. So what did I do? I missed the first one. I got the second one, got the third one, got the fourth one, missed it. So I went 3 for 5 this week. So there you go. 3 for 5. Not bad. I thought I was going to go perfect, but stuff got delayed. I can't do anything about that. And I didn't say campaigns instead of games. So otherwise I would have been 4 for 5. Liege Stradamus. Always making it entertaining. TV time. Let's see. I'm still watching Bugasol, the sort of horror-ish drama, Korean drama. I would highly recommend, though, just came out on Netflix, The Journalist, Japanese story of corruption. Not a real story, but it's definitely a hard look at corruption that happens in the government, and it's getting really good reviews right now, and I'm not far in, but it's very, very realistic, and that's why it's so good. So I highly recommend that. Catching up on the latest season of Archer, again, like sort of hit or miss right now. Just, I don't know, just doesn't always click with me as much. It's sort of getting back in the vibe though, so that's good. Oh yeah, that's right. I finished the latest season of Doctor Who. I mean, like, spoilers here. If you haven't watched the latest season of all Doctor Who, I'm going to talk about that right now. It's still just all over the place. Like all of a sudden Doctor Who has jumped into the power creep side of things. Like, all of a sudden this being can do all of this, and then all of a sudden there's this new entity that can do all of this, and then there's these beings actually come to another being, and then we're splitting it into multiple parts and multiple things that have never happened and make no sense. And like, it kind of worked out okay, and it kind of was okay, but at the same time it was just kind of all over the place. Like, I don't know what the showrunners and the writers were thinking from that side of things, and I'm just not terribly impressed. Like, I finished it because I kind of wanted to see how it was going to resolve, but at the same time, like, I just wasn't really... Things were just kind of put out there and then very either quickly taken care of or very quickly ignored. And it's not the Doctor Who that I was watching or really, really enjoying 5 or 10 years ago. And nothing against, it being a female doctor either. I have no problem with a female doctor. But her season, I think she's done after like this set of specials. So then it's going to come up again. Who's going to be the next one? Because that's always the big question when this happens. So it'll be interesting to see. Apart from that, I need to go play some Slay the Spire on Switch. My kids are obsessed with Switch. We got, our local library has, like, you can just rent them. So you can rent them for like 3 weeks. Kids, my wife just ordered a bunch, not knowing when stuff was going to come in. And so we only have 2 games ourselves. But we have like literally like 6 games rented right now. And the kids are like trying to play a game, but then we get a new game. And then their like attention is gone to the other new game. And so then they're playing like 20 minutes of one game and then like going back to like play another 20 minutes of another game. And so like, like especially with like a game like we didn't get Breath of the Wild, we got Skyward Sword. So if you play 20 minutes of Skyward Sword, right, you're not going to get anywhere. You play 20 minutes of Pokemon Shield or Sword, you're not going to get anywhere. So I mean, they're not very far on that side of things. The 7-year-old's kind of obsessed now with Captain Toad, like the Captain Toad tracker thing with the 3D spatial puzzles, which is really cool. I mean, he's kind of like that anyway. Like he's been doing puzzles since he was like so he's always been more that way. And then the other big one that they're really looking at too is they haven't played yet is Luigi's Mansion 3. So again, which I told them, you will love it, you will love it, you will love it. Oh, it comes. Now we want to watch YouTube videos on it. So they've watched like a YouTube video on like all of the bosses in Luigi Mansion 3. They haven't even played it. Like that's weird as a kid. But I guess, we had Nintendo Power as a kid too. So I guess it's not like terribly different. And like the strategy guides that were like this and you bought them, because otherwise some of these games were like next to impossible. Now you can just go online and watch a whole gameplay through of like, I was searching the other day for gameplay to use for something, and it was the gameplay recorded like 11 hours straight. How do you do that, man? Anyway, last side note, as of like right now, as of filming this, I'm hoping to get at least 1 or 2 more played today. I have played 8 new games to me. 8 new games already in the month of January, and this is only the 14th day of the month. 8 new games in 14 days so far. So I'm really trying to get stuff played. I've got a couple previews coming out. I've got a couple things that I finally played. I finally played this. Spoilers. I played this. Spoilers. You're not supposed to know all the stuff I have. I don't know. It's just something like that. And I played one of the best Kickstarters I've ever played. Just kidding. It's not that good, but it's a combination of value, timing, and gameplay. So we'll talk about that too, because that will be coming out shortly. And I just got to have a whole lot of videos in that ilk. So if you wouldn't mind watching a few of those too, that'd be really helpful in terms of support. So publishers know that you guys like what I put out. Well, you clearly do, because you're watching this in the first place. You made it this far in the end. So, okay. That's all I got. It's going to be a great weekend. Hopefully it's a great weekend for you guys. Yeah. I got nothing else. The Ramble was like stay classy, so stay classy. See you around. Have a good one. Play something new. Maybe. Old stuff's good too, though. Just play something. Or at least that I chaw. It's a